Hello, everyone. We're live now on the Zodcast, the usual place and the usual time. We are finally on time, so here we all are. Welcome to the live chat. Good seeing everyone. Patty, of course, holding it down. Taxation Beat Theft. How are you? Norjack, Malachi, good seeing you. Tim, if you're still on, always seeing you. Good seeing you, mate. I think we did a good job on the recent Braden podcast with our good friend D. Raj. If you guys haven't seen that, you want to check it out. If you're a Braden fan like I am, of course, I'm reading my Braden T-shirt. You've seen this one before, haven't you, Tim? This is the one that Jason did. Turned out really nice. Hey, Dennis. I should have wore that for our recording that we did the other day, but I think it turned out really nice. D-Raj sounds so good, everybody thinks he's AI. Even Ryan thought he was AI. I was like, no, that's his real voice. He just sounds that good, and he's that much of a pro. I mean, he sounds better than AI. If there's such a thing as better than AI, I think D-Raj's voice is even better. So it's just like a real voice that's even cleaner than AI, which turned out really well. But I guess we're going to do, but Tim, speaking of that, if D-Rod said he could put Ted in Niles, Ohio, because I always know that Niles would bounce off of Braden's name when you did background reports, but it would never really give years. And then some I saw years that were like 1980s. Of course, that wouldn't help us any. But I think D-Rod has maybe something that could put him in Niles, Ohio in 1970, which is huge because, of course, Niles, Ohio is a home of RMI titanium, which used the Hunter process, which wasn't that widely done. I mean, titanium wasn't very common, and titanium that was made using the Hunter process was even more rare. And that's the type of process that RMI uses or used at the time. I think that they got bought out, and then I think it stands for Reactive Metals Inc., which is what RMI was in Niles, Ohio. Of course, there was a truck terminal there called yeah, I wish I could go back to 1970. I was only a year old, but I probably didn't have my back probably felt a lot better than it does now. Hey, Ross, good seeing you as always. If anybody's ever had my back in this whole world of online sleuthing, it's been Ross Geraci. Ross has always had my back, and man, I appreciate that. He really has always had it. Oh yeah, you're doing your what is it? Your master's or something? I forgot what you're doing some extra educational stuff. I forgot. So 6 papers, man. I can't even do one without being overloaded. But I forgot you were doing your extra educational stuff, and I know you're a computer guy, so I'm sure I couldn't even go anywhere near some of that stuff that you're doing because computers are math. I know just enough math to get by at what I do, which is real estate, but you're doing that advanced stuff. MSIS. So, yeah, masters. Okay, I knew I had it right. So there's MIS is management information systems. So what's MSIS? Masters of Information Systems. Duh, Drew. I guess that's what it is. So it's not like a regular MIS degree, which like a bachelor's or a bachelor of science in MIS. It's a bachelor, so it's MSIS. So I think I figured it out on my own somehow, some way. I'll get there. It does sound hard. Ross says, "Yep." Yeah, I remember my friend got just a undergrad MIS degree, and that was hard enough. I mean, he finally had to put the bong down, and he's a smart guy, really smart guy, but he had to totally focus to get that MIS degree, and he did it. And but man, he had to really focus. He quit drinking any beers on the weekend. He wasn't a big drinker, but he'd drink some on the weekends, and he'd smoke some weed back post high school days, and in college, and he just totally had to focus, but he did it, and he got out and got an MIS degree that he really made good use of. I think he's working for Texaco, corporate Texaco, which is a pretty good gig. I don't know if he ever went back. I haven't talked to him in a while. I don't know if he went back for anything higher than his undergrad. You're picking up the bong for years. Yes. I mean, I was telling a friend the other day that some people can smoke out and just not miss a beat. I mean, I don't know if it may even make them think better or even do better. Like just some people are just can roll on that frequency, and there's nothing wrong with that. If you can roll on it, why not? But back in our day, it was kind of an unmotivator. At least it was for me. Just had to put it down, man, because we were going nowhere fast. We figured out, but somebody who can just do it and roll. I've always been impressed with that. I really have. Dudes that could just kind of do what they want to do, and then once the lights went on, boom, they were just not going to miss a beat, and they knew their stuff, like you do, and you know your filmmaking too, man. That one that I guess you're co-producing that one new movie. It looks really cool. You think too many people smoke weed nowadays? You'd be at work and smell it 50 feet away. Wow. That's amazing. I don't smell any at work. I used to but it was my buddy. I'd smell it in the parking garage. And we had like this huge, giant parking garage that was for like 3 different mid-size office buildings. And I'd smell weed like I would just catch it in the wind. And it was always my buddy. I mean, it was just like, man, we're talking about a huge area. And every time I caught that weed, it was him, because when he finally came into the office, all glazed over, I could tell he was the one that was the source of the weed smell. And he's still out there. He's doing well. So good for him. He's doing well at his job and his weekend musical gigs. So he tunes in from time to time. Hey, Greg. Good catching up with everybody. I saw where Walter was back. Ross, you saw Walter. Hey, Jacob. Walter hadn't been around for a while. I think he didn't know it, though. I think maybe there was something wrong with his login. But it's good seeing Walter back in the mix. On my channel, on Ross's channel. He's probably back. Hey, Steve. Always good seeing Steve good, too. Beware the Ides of March. Yeah, it's my mom's birthday. The Ides of March, or guys with the last name Voigt. Yes, and you spelled the name right. You got to get the name right. That is the correct spelling of Voigt, by the way. There is no H in it. So Steve has it right. Yeah, I just, yes. Ross, thank you. Corky gives us a shout out. Of course, every time I think of Voigt, I can't believe that guy was like about 6 feet from me, which is still an odd feeling when he was 6 feet from me. I mean, I wasn't too worried about it, but it was a weird feeling being in the same room, not only in the same room as him, but being about 6 feet away from the guy. I assumed he knew who I was because I think his wife told him, because she was there earlier than him, and she was trying pretty hard to listen to whatever we were talking about, and I don't even remember what we were talking about. I don't know if we were talking about DB Cooper or Zodiac. Maybe a little bit of Zodiac. Not much though. So it was. I think I was trying to figure out who she was, and because I thought she was the other lady that kind of came up at CooperCon, but wasn't her. So it was actually kind of a really weird. Yeah, the channel trailer. Was it? No. Yeah, the channel trailer is great, but it was the movie. The channel trailer is awesome, but it was the movie you're like co-doing or whatever is what I'm talking about. Has anyone seen the Zodiac rap bottles? It's apparently a thing a few years ago. I don't think so. Just like the volleyball, there's no braided Voigt. Like the volleyball from the Tom Hanks movie. What was the name of the Tom Hanks movie with the volleyball? Where he's stranded on the island. See, I already forgot. Camera X is your movie? Okay. That looks really cool. No. To Catch a Predator, To Catch a Pedophile, or whatever. Makes me think of Arthur Lee Allen. Wasn't that the name of it, Ross? Yeah, Castaway. Thanks. But it wasn't the one you're doing, co-doing is something like To Catch a Pedophile, something like that. Fire Pixie. It makes the channel look really interesting, bringing in all those subjects in the movies. Yeah, right. It really does. Ross covers a lot of those movies, and knows a lot about them, a whole lot, like how they're shot, and he does the same thing. So Ross is very well versed at movie making. Texarkana Phantom and the Zodiac being the same. Oh yeah, we've heard that a lot. Ned over at BBOR has done a lot on the Texarkana Phantom, or what's it are also called the Texarkana Moonlight Murders. because they were couples on lovers lanes. I think the Texarkana murder started like 57, 58. So he might have been a little old to be Zodiac. But I've definitely heard I've definitely heard the proposition that was the same person, because they were both murders. But there was, I think, 2 or 3 decent suspects for the Texarkana murders. I don't remember the names of them. I never got that deep into it. Ned did. Ned did a lot of deep dives into that. So maybe Ned did a show where he's comparing Zodiac to the Texarkana murderer and trying to see if they're the same. Rap battle with Tyrion Voight. Voice never got past. What? Yeah, he didn't do a lot of vocalization. Was that one of the suspects? Swinney? What about the Santa Rosa? You mean Hooded Terror? I don't know. I haven't heard of that one. I don't know, Sepher. What did you ask me? We'll do it here in front of the whole crew. I thought I did send you something about Braden, because we certainly have the Bradeneers here tonight, especially with my my wingman Tim Wallace holding down the all things Ted Braden across the ocean. The 1937 Hooded Terror, Santa Rosa. No, I don't think I've ever heard of that, Ross. Yeah, just remind me again, Sepher, what it was. Because I thought I sent you something about Braden, but I can't remember. I just don't remember what you asked me. Of course, if D. Raj can put Braden in Niles in 1970, that's huge. If Where's a Hood cannot be good, tell us more about the Hooded Terror. Yes, please. Was he in Washington State? Can't put him in Washington State. Wish I could. If we could, we'd probably be halfway done, or at least halfway done. No, can't put him in Washington State. He's a smart guy. He's probably keeping a low profile, but no, can't put him in Washington State. He did work for Consolidated Freightways, which was at the time based out of Portland, and then in '72 they moved across the river to Southern Washington State in '72, where his company was based out of. But now we have this theory that maybe he was working at Pittsburgh Plate Glass, and then he left and worked for Consolidated, then maybe went back and worked for PPG, which is obviously short for Pittsburgh Plate Glass. And as Tim knows, and is doing some work on it now, every one of those elements on Cooper's tie can be found at PPG, which is known for making plate glass. That's why it's called that. And then later they got into making paint, of course, out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So one thing a lot of people can agree on is the elements on DB Cooper's tie are very Pittsburghish, because around Pittsburgh you had all that steel and different chemicals and bigger companies. Hey, Darnell, good seeing you. Hey, Darnell, I never asked you because I don't think maybe I didn't do a show or you were back or whatever, but did you watch the OJ thing? Because I know you kind of follow OJ like more than I do. Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know, Darnell, like as far as the algorithms and stuff go with YouTube, I kind of got to where I don't care anymore. I just, if 200 people watch it, that's great. If 5 people watch it, I don't care. I'm just kind of in that mode. Yeah, we can do. Yeah, ALA, definitely the ALA is Zodiac without Cheney. It's still anyway. That reminded me. That's a good lead in, Ross. Let me go back to Ross. You asked the AI. Let's get back to telling everyone ALA is not the Z without Cheney. Everything going ALA is like with cutting Cheney out is why would he tell Cheney? That's what you always have to go back to. If ALA is Zodiac by himself, why would he ever tell Don Cheney, who did give him up? Might have taken him a while, but he did give him up. So if he trusted, obviously Allen's instincts were wrong because Cheney eventually gives him up. But that reminded me about something else I want to get into. Still convinced the Zodiac is multiple people, just like Jack the Ripper. I don't know Ripper that well. That's my thing. I know it, but I don't know it that well. I couldn't even, like Holmes is one of the suspects, but I can't even. There's so many people that know it so well that are passionate about it and kind of like Zodiac and are convinced they know who it is. They were printing everything. Yeah, that's true. I don't think that'd be that hard to copycat. Yeah, and I definitely think Zodiac would be a definitely influenced by Jack the Ripper, because obviously Jack the Ripper's happened in England and London, and we know Zodiac like so many things that were English, like the Mikado, and like those guys thought that we worked with in the documentary. They thought the book, The Devil's Charter, which I think was written in the 1600s, which is also English. They were pretty confident that the Zodiac read that book, The Devil's Charter. That's one you're not going to hear everywhere. Yes, that is true. Cooper never killed anyone. Ah, as for the OG documentary, yes, you've seen it. It was basically the same biased narrative. You didn't like it. Yeah, I think my sister saw it. I don't see. I wish my sister was on here now. I don't know where she is. Uh, she said it was pretty damning against OJ, but I have not seen it yet. I haven't even had the chance to watch it. I'm just saying what she said. I mean, I know there's. They can say that the Seawater documentary was damning against Arthur Lee Allen, but I know it so well. I don't think it is damning against Arthur Lee Allen, because one, we already knew everything the Seawaters knew, and there's not one thing new that came out in the documentary, that Zodiac documentary with the Seawaters, that most Zodiac researchers didn't already know. I mean, they already had a YouTube channel a year before, so there was nothing new under the sun as far as the Seawaters were concerned. What was new under the sun for me, of course, was that younger voice of Don Chaney, which I'm going to send to somebody that Tim and I both know well, who's great at cleaning up audio. So what I'm going to do is send him the audio file from the documentary of Chaney's voice and have the background noise cut out of it, where you're just hearing Don's voice, because I think you can kind of hear. I mean, it's pretty heavily edited in the documentary, but you can still hear a lot of background noise. And I know just the guy that can clean that up and get rid of that noise and really get a good sample of Chaney's voice whenever that's from. And I still disagree with Suffer here. I think that's Graysmith's audio. I really do. He just sounds too young for that to have been later audio. I just think it's Graysmith. I wish I could talk to Graysmith. I mean, he's getting older. Before the guy dies, I would just love to talk to Robert Graysmith for at least 10 minutes and just say, come on, did you ever suspect anything about Chaney? I mean, now that you made your money, there's lots of water under the bridge. Just tell me what you really thought of Don Chaney. Come on. I mean, I know he's the goose that laid the golden egg, but let's just get it out on the table, right? I'd love to have that. Ted Braden wasn't. What's GROK? Is that AI? I don't even know. That's how bad I am at AI. My friend Michael knows it really well. I don't. Ted Braden was in Washington State around time to be Cooper hijacking November 24th. Right? Yes. Yeah. Consolidated. The problem with that is we're lucky that we even know he worked for Consolidated Freightways. That only comes from one letter that his youngest stepdaughter gave to me, that he was working for Consolidated. And the only way we know that he worked for Pittsburgh Plate Glass is because it was a chance encounter at a truck stop in Bowling Green, Kentucky, where Ted Braden's sitting at the counter and Altair walks into Altair's already there. He's already sitting at the truck stop counter having breakfast or ordered his food. And Ted Braden walks through the door and he's like, Ted Braden. And Ted like jumps, like he's like, how does somebody know my name here? Kind of startled the guy, for a guy with nerves of steel. Why is he so nervous? But Al thought that was about 73. So it's just an absolute fluke that we know that Braden worked at Consolidated, which is a fact. And it's an absolute fluke that we know that he worked at PPG. Very lucky that we know those pieces of information. Wish we could expand on them, but at least we know. Yes, Braden worked for Consolidated, and we know Braden worked for Consolidated in early 73 because I believe the letter he wrote to his wife was written in March, and I have a copy of the original letter. So that's how we know Braden worked for PPG, which was based out of Portland at the time, not Vancouver, Washington. They moved the following year, I think 72. Out of the 5 mysteries I want to know the answer to, Cooper was one of them. Yeah, I'm glad. Yeah, I think it's Braden for a lot of reasons. And it's not just with Braden and all the backup from McVie it really is not a brothers in arms situation where they have to have this accolade. McVie does not need the accolade of DB Cooper. I mean, McVie was is it's legend on its own. I mean, here's the commemoration medal I got. It's called a puck coin that I got from Alan Keller, who went on missions with Ted Braden. It's a presidential citation commemorative medal, April 4th of 2001. Of course, it puts 4 April. That's the military way of doing dates, but Al Keller gave me that. I mean, these guys were absolute badasses. Uh, Sog didn't need DB Cooper. That's one thing you got to understand. So this is no brothers in arms. You got guys like Leonard Tilley that hated Ted Braden's guts, hated him, but firmly believed he was Cooper. Jacob, but I don't know who you're talking about. There can be 1,000 suspects, but Cooper made it. Even if you don't think it's Braden, Cooper made it. I mean, it was even that TV show that came out showed how survivable the jump really was. Yeah, Yuba County 5, I think, is one of the greatest American mysteries of all time. It's weird, is because uh, it only came out through YouTube. Like without YouTube, people didn't even know who Yuba County 5 was. No one would have ever heard of it if it weren't for YouTube, even though it's called the American Dyatlov Pass, which is obviously where the hikers went missing in Russia in 1959. Yes, I've reached out to all Braden's family that will talk. Of course I have. He has which this is in the latest podcast. You gotta go find. I don't know if Patty could find the link, but we mentioned the fact that he had a biological son and daughter, and they won't talk. They don't want to talk about him. But the family that knew him the best at the time of the hijacking was his third wife, Pauline, and his stepdaughters, who were living with him at the time of the hijacking. And I extensively interviewed the youngest stepdaughter, and she said all through the years that they believed that he was Cooper. I mean, flat out. Uh, there was no bones about it. She said her mom told her that Ted was Cooper, albeit she had the early stages of Alzheimer's or dementia, but she firmly believed that her husband was DB Cooper. Her name's Pauline. Yeah, oh yeah, DB Cooper made it. There's no doubt. I mean, I think Marty and Andrade's book does a good job of talking about the survivability of Cooper and analyzing the D-Day jumps. Um, about how survivable they were. All those are static line stuff over in Europe during World War II, but there was like almost nobody killed unless you got hit by the anti-aircraft. You weren't killed by your parachutes. I mean, the bottom line is the parachutes work. They work. And they've never found Cooper hanging in a tree. But yeah, his step grandson made a good comment about it. Said the family has always believed that he was Cooper. He lost it. Well, we know at least he lost. He may have lost some of the money, unless the money was a plant. And I think the money was planted. The money was planted. There's just no way around it. The diatoms that Tom K found in the Citizen Sluice were summertime diatoms. They weren't winter diatoms. The money was planted for whatever reason. The money was planted. Hey, plate C. I think he got some of the money. Ryan's trying to stay suspect neutral. He likes Orville Lions right now a little bit. It's got a bit of maybe because he's got a bit of a Mississippi tie. He still likes Braden. He still likes Skip Hall. I'd say those are his top three: are Braden, Skip Hall, and Orville Lions. If I'm wrong on that, Ryan might be on there. Correct me, but I think those are his top three: is Lions, Braden, and Hall. I think I am, unless he found someone new last week he hasn't told me about it, which is could be the case. Oh yeah, it's a high survival rate, very high survival rate, Ross. Would I parachute? Yeah, I don't know. If I got up in the plane, I would jump out. I know that. If I got as far as getting up in the plane, tandem or whatever, I think you have to tandem. If maybe each state is different, or I don't know if there's national rules, but um, I think you have to have at least a couple of tandems or so before they'll let you do your own pull, your own free fall pull. But all I know is if I do go up in the plane, I'm definitely jumping out with the parachute. I wouldn't go that far and then back out. That's all I know. So I'd say right now, if everything was set up, I'd probably do it. I wouldn't mind doing it. I probably should. Didn't they connect the dust on the tie? I don't know. They've been working on that. I've been kind of behind on the whole, the tie is constantly moving, and they're constantly, it got reanalyzed or something. And then some things they thought were some things changed. And it's just, yeah, I tandem with Mike any day. Mike Davis. Malachi says, no way, he's not jumping. But going back to Arthur Lee Allen, let me blow this up. Here's, of course, Phil Tucker. That's Phil Tucker right here at the top right. That's one of the only pictures I've ever seen of Phil Tucker. And Phil Tucker is very important to all things Arthur Lee Allen, because Phil Tucker is the one that claimed he was in Arthur Lee Allen's room when Arthur Lee Allen opened up the little, I think it was a silver metal box that had the cryptograms in it that he said and his wife said it looked exactly like the zodiac ciphers that were in the paper. That they said the symbols were exactly the same, that Allen was in possession of these ciphers, and that his wife wanted to ask Arthur Lee Allen, hey, can I borrow one of those for a school project, or just she had some kind of lame reason she was trying to see if he would actually let her have one, because there was multiple pages that looked like zodiac ciphers with the same symbols on them. Of course, Allen said that he got them from a fellow patient at Atascadero Hospital, which was a mental hospital / prison, because back then they believed if you were a child molester, you could be reformed. Now we know that's not true. The only way to reform a child molester is to castrate them. Okay. That's just a blunt truth. But back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, and especially early 70s, they literally thought they could reform you somehow just through, I guess, counseling or maybe some drugs, but they really thought they could reform you. But they really couldn't. But this shows right here, Phil Tucker got indicted at GVRD. Of course, that's Greater Vallejo Recreational District, where Allen worked for years. And then it also mentions, I think it's Ted Kidder. And here they are getting in trouble for a pretty good scale of fraud. I don't remember the exact details of what happened, but so you can't even put 100% stock in what these guys said, because here they are. Just, I think this is like 73, so not too far separated from the Zodiac killings. And here you got Tucker getting in pretty big trouble. He gets divorced from his wife that did back him up on seeing the symbols in the little silver metal box or gray box that was in Allen's room that had the ciphers in it. So this is just a good sample of who we're dealing with, when they bring up Tucker a lot when they talk about the 408 cipher in The Most Dangerous Game, the book being, or the movie being, one of Allen's favorites. Of course, that phrase comes up about hunting humans and not animals, because man is the most dangerous animal of them all. And Tucker was a big proponent of, oh yeah, Arthur Lee Allen talked about that all the time. And here he is getting in trouble for fraud. So that's what makes the whole thing with Zodiac so murky, is you're dealing with guys like Tucker who really aren't good guys, is where I'm going with this. They're just not. He's kind of a dirtbag. So it's really unfortunate. Mike said I'd never get in the plane in the first place. Did anything come with the Seawater family believing it was ALA in the Netflix documentary? No, nothing came of that. I think it solidified the Allen believers a little bit. I think it kind of united the Allen believers. But, the short part of it is no, it really didn't. I think it convinced people that don't really know it that well. I think people that were already on the Allen train kind of used it as is more firewood for them, or yeah, we told you it's our guy. And I mean, the hardcore Allen people never like Don Chaney being part of it. They like to latch on to Chaney as being a big old truth teller, which is just not the case. I can show you several instances where Chaney's lying. But the Allen believers, dude, they want Allen to be the lone Zodiac or nothing. They do. I don't know why, but they do. They're like, it's all Allen or nothing. And the first question I'd say to them is, okay, if you're telling me that Allen, and this going back to what you mentioned earlier, Ross, if it's all Allen by himself and he's playing all these games with encryption and hiding clues in the 408 and the 340 that took over 50 years for those three guys to break, why is he playing all these games with encryption? Just to blab it all to Don Chaney. I mean, answer me that, Allen people that think it's all Allen by himself. Why is he just going to willy-nilly lay all that on Chaney? No, here's Chaney, for all intents and purposes, is a family guy, two young kids, mechanical engineer, went to Cal Poly Pomona, got an honorable discharge from the Air Force, and he's just going to blab all this to the guy, to somebody he met through his brother. He didn't even meet on his own. It's not even like Glenn Reinhardt, who was Allen's best friend from when he was young. I mean, this is just some guy he met through his brother in 62, 63. And he's going to blab him all this information in 68 or earliest is 67. He's just going to say, oh, Don, by the way, I'm going to call myself Zodiac and go kill a bunch of couples. How does that sound? It's absurd. It's freaking absurd. So to the Soul Allen people, answer me that one. You can't. That's how I put the Allen people to bed. Yeah, makes zero sense. Allen is a solo Z. It really does. And, one of the best ways, and you know how I do it, Ross, to attack a solo Allen is Barry Essa. Ain't no way that attacker is Arthur Lee Allen. Allen really was not what you call true ambidextrous. He could use his left hand and write with a little bit, his right hand, some to write with because they forced him to. He was born left-handed. He's not going to be stabbing people with his non-dominant hand, just like his dialysis. Where did he get his dialysis? We know this from the pictures. He's getting his dialysis in his right arm because that is his non-dominant arm. That's where you get your kidney dialysis IV, is through your non-dominant arm. So if you do write, you're free to write or mess with whatever. You got one, your dominant hand is free because people sit there getting dialysis for hours. So that even backs that up. But Allen was left-handed. Even Glenn Reinhardt states that is fact. So they try to muddy the waters. Graysmith did a good job of muddying the waters about Allen being truly ambidextrous, where he could pretty much do anything with his right hand that he could with his left. That's complete nonsense. The dude was born left-handed because he was left-handed. He could somewhat use his right hand because it was a scourge to be left-handed back in the day, and the teachers forced you to write with your right hand. Bottom line. Yeah, Allen is horrific for Barry Essa, stumbling around in the dark with a wig over his eyes. Yeah, some people like to argue with me over that wig thing. I mean, like, why would you wear a hood with a wig under it? That's ridiculous. Even if it was super glued on there, that would be ridiculous. You can sweat under there. It was, a fairly warm afternoon, even at September of 27. At night it got really cold. That's just Northern California. It could get pretty warm. That's why it's good for growing grapes in that area, Napa, Sonoma. It gets fairly warm in the afternoon, but it will cool down at night. It'll get pretty cold, down to 50, maybe high 40s in September. But wearing a wig under a hood is preposterous to me. I will always stick to that fact that I do not believe he's wearing a wig under a hood with hair long enough. So you're going to get a wig and wear it under a hood, and the hair is going to be so long it's coming through the eyelet, that's a double negative. Your hair's so long it's covering your eyes, and you might get in a tussle with a dude that's 6'7". I mean, even if Hartnell was a wimp, 6'7" is such an advantage over a guy. Let's just give him Zodiac 5'11". Let's just say he's 5'11", and he gets in any kind of tussle with a younger guy that's 6'7". I mean, the reach alone on a guy that's 6'7" is going to mess you up. If he's got any fight in him whatsoever, he's going to have his work cut out, especially with a hood over his eyes and hair coming through the eyelets. Hartnell should have made a play on that gun, even though, since I know that as the story goes, he asked Cecilia if he should do it. She talked him out of it. And that's why he didn't. But he thought about making a play on that gun. And I think if Hartnell makes a play on the gun, that this is all history. We're not even talking about it right now. It's all gone. Yeah, that's true, Mike. I think a lot of the non-canon victims are, well, not really. I think Ross has done a great job of not letting the non-canon victims be forgotten, like Sherry Joe Bates and Edwards and Dominguez, of course, Linda and Bobby. We call them. I mean, that's knowing them well. I mean, if somebody says Linda and Bobby, we automatically know who they're talking about. Ray Davis. Ross has done a lot for keeping the memory of Ray Davis alive, even if they're not Zodiac victims. I don't think Sherry Joe Bates was a Zodiac victim, but I think attaching her case to Zodiac got Sherry Joe more recognition, more just getting her name out there more, I think helped. It's like people got mad at the whole Gabby Petito thing because she was this young white girl and got more attention than like a young African American girl may get, or Hispanic, just because she was white. And that's probably true. Let's admit it. Because that was just such a bizarre relationship where here they are renting this bus and they're going up into the national parks and doing whatever they're doing, and no one could look at a picture of Brian Laundrie. I think his name was Brian Laundrie, and then Gabby Petito had this great little relationship where they, had the time and the money to go rent this nice little RV thing and go driving up through the national parks. But a lot of people were mad about all the attention that Gabby Petito got. But I think that guys like Ross, particularly Ross, has done a great job of keeping the memories of these non-canon victims alive. And a lot of it is being tied to Zodiac, because if Sherry Joe Bates wasn't tied to Zodiac, you probably may never heard of her. Alan was fat and bald. No way he was at Berryessa. That is for damn sure, Suffer. We agree. Ain't no way. And remember Brian participating in the first, this is the Zodiac speaking documentary, said the Zodiac, when Cecilia saw him over by the tree, and then when Brian picks up, he notices him again, because at first he thought, no big deal. The guy's just going to the bathroom. He's far enough away. And then when Brian notices him again, he's walking at them briskly. He's briskly walking towards him. Alan ain't briskly walking anywhere in 1969. That's just fact. They said of Alan, who was a great diver. He was a state champion at diving. Alan was a good athlete. He really was. Great at the trampoline. I know that's not a big deal now, but it was in the day. And he was a great diver. But they said when he walked up on the diving platform, all the way up the ladder and walking out on the plank to make his dives, he looked terrible. Like, you would be thinking this guy's going to have the most awful dive we've ever seen, because he didn't walk that well. He didn't move that well. But once he made his dive off of the board, he looked like poetry in motion. He was great. But just getting to that point, he looked horrible. So he's just one of those anomalies like that. You suspect LAL and DC, I guess meant ALA. Maybe, could be. Lake Herman Road, I'm open on. I've always been. She bought a van. Oh, she bought it? I thought they rented it. I don't know why I thought they rented it. My friend Ronnie Gonzalez, aka Gonzo, was up there right after they recovered Gabby, and I think he got the first picture of something Gabby made or left behind. I can't remember what it was, but it was but my friend Ronnie Gonzalez was up there right after they found Gabby Petito. Yeah, ALA. I knew that's what you meant. Show the article where Tucker was indicted for fraud again. Yeah, I'll put it up. I'll try to let me see if I can also add that to the what used to be called the community section. It's also called posts. It's called community on the desktop version of YouTube, but I'll put this same shot on the post section. And only if you're on your iPhone or your iPad, I think it says post. You know, that's where we put the updates. Or on community, if you're working off of your laptop, it'll say community. But I'll drop this in for you up there, and then I think you'll be able to get a better shot of it. Because I just ran across this looking at. I'm so unorganized. I was just blasting through old screenshots. But yeah, it says 6 persons indicted, of course, for fraud at GVRD, and says Tucker. It's funny that it says Tucker and Kidder had jury list because of all the guys at the Greater Vallejo Recreational Department, I think is what it's called, department, were the 2 closest to Allen, or the 2 heading the list is Tucker and Kidder, which is kind of funny. But I'll add this in there tonight. Actually, I'll remember to do that for you. I'll add that, so then you'll be able to read it. You should be able to read it better. You can probably double click on it and then be able to read it a little bit better than just leaving it up here. But I'll definitely drop that in. There's another comment that I liked. I would go with this 168 days ago, because I love seeing some of the comments I've missed before on his name is Arthur Lee Allen, which a lot of these come from. Says I would go with the Cheney and Lee combination. Cheney was the one doing the writing to change his writing style. Cheney could have easily changed his writing style. He's a draftsman and a mechanical engineer. He probably copied and practiced someone else's letters, repeating them letter by letter. 100% agree. I think Cheney also knew how to turn the piece of paper around to disguise part of his writing, and I've got examples of that. From the appearance of the writing, it seems like the letters were formed character by character, possibly after practicing several times on the side. 100% agree with this person. They also appear to be intentional spelling mistakes. Well, we know that. Stefan Nyberg's example totally proves this when he's talking about satirical and comedy, just juxtaposing 2 of the letters out of satirical and comedy from the Exorcist letter. I think Stefan Nyberg put that to bed, personally. There also appears to be intentional spelling mistakes to give the impression of someone uneducated. Totally agree with that. The same applies to the mental issues and the dark urges theatrics. True. And we know that so much of the dark urges came from comic books, thanks to Seffers, who's on here, who's, I think, done more than at least on the Cheney side, digging into the comics than anyone. At some point, perhaps feeling cornered either by Lee or the police, Cheney decided to throw Lee under the bus in order to stop further investigations. Dead on. That is a dead on post. 100% agree with it, of course. I know that's a little bit of playing to the choir for me, but well said. Cheney's a very smart man and has so many coincidences it almost equals ALA coincidences. Actually, the Cheney circumstantial evidence, I think, outweighs Arthur Lee Allen's. I really do. I'm biased, but I believe that. Going to junior college where there's only 200 male students, and one of those is Paul Avery in 1952, is stunning. And then they do the Mikado the next semester, and all of Avery's buddies are in that. And then Cheney has a relative with the last name Paradise with the dice spelling. That alone, it's got a lot of catching up to do for Allen, circumstantially. Why not show his old pictures, surviving victims, or have them listen to his voice? I think it's about Cheney. So much focus on Allen, but they never question the good old Samaritan, Don Cheney. Of course not. That's why I'm going to put even more work into cleaning up the Don Cheney's voice from that last documentary, cut out the background noise, and I'm going to get it to, let's just say, the Hartnell camp, I'll call it, is where that is going to be sent to. Because he's, I played that for my buddy, Sean, and Sean is born and raised in Oklahoma, and he said if I ever heard that, he said I would just assume the guy was from a local from Oklahoma. I don't know if Cheney had bombs, but of course, Allen's story was the pipe bombs they found there, and then when he's showing Rita Williams where the bombs were found at his house, were left there by a friend. He never says what friend, But there's a lot of interesting words he does say in that documentary about Cheney. He's talking about Cheney because he says, my friend's brother. I mean, he says my brother's friend. Sorry. He says he refers to Cheney as his brother's friend. And he goes, and he's referring to some of his statements weren't true. Like, so the opposite of that would be some of the statements were true that Cheney made. If you were to go by that, he says, he refers to Cheney as his brother's friend. Of course, we know that's how he met Cheney, was through his brother, younger brother, Ron Allen. And then he says some of the things he said were not true. Like what's true, which was true and which was not. That's so interesting. When Arthur Lee Allen is questioned about Don Cheney, he never says anything negative. He always says, "Oh, even when fully confronted, Allen, we know that the allegations against you for being Zodiac mostly come from Don Cheney. What do you think?" And he says, "Oh, Don's a nice guy." He never says anything negative about him. And to prove that this isn't just Allen in general, is that he trashes Ralph Spinelli. Of course, Spinelli is another reason why it all comes up again when Spinelli tells the story of Allen coming to his the Crazy Horse Saloon and where that Spinelli owned, and offering up his services as a hitman. And then and then Spinelli throws him out. Paul, of course, I've said this a billion times. Paul Stein is murdered, the last canonical Zodiac crime. And then Allen comes back to the Crazy Horse and says, "Do you believe me now?" And then Spinelli says, "Yes, now get the hell out of my office." And then, but anytime that they asked Allen about Spinelli, Allen trashed him. He said he's a hood. He's part of the mafia. He said later one of the cops admitted to Allen that Spinelli was up on 2 or 3 armed robbery charges, and he was just trying to save his butt, which is true. So it's not one of these just Arthur Lee Allen speaks well of everybody. But when Cheney's name is specifically brought up, Allen was on his P's and Q's. Never said anything negative about Don Cheney. Not one. I would bet all the money in the world that there is not one accurately printed article or statement from Arthur Lee Allen saying anything even slightly negative about Don Cheney. And that is so telling. Here's a guy that accuses you of being the Zodiac and is the main reason you're being looked at. And believe me, Allen liked the attention at first, but he really didn't like it towards the end of his life. In fact, on Allen's printer when he was found deceased in his, I guess for lack of a better word, room that was attached to 32 Fresno. I've been as close to the driveway. I didn't go in, even though I should have, because there was 2 people standing in front of the house that one of them may have lived there, but I didn't want to go that far. I hate being that guy, Can I go into Allen's room? I didn't. But looking back, maybe they would have let me in, but I just assumed one of them may have been connected to the house or renting it or living in there or whatever. But I didn't. But anyway, it just makes you really think that why would Allen never say anything negative about Don Cheney? Never did he do that. Yeah, I see some of Allen in the letters. I really do. A lot of the hells and the G glyphs that I've looked at this a lot. Peter Ackerman does a great job of tying Allen to the letters, even though I think he's one of these ALA or nothing guys. I don't know why. He's a good researcher. I don't know why he doesn't like to add Cheney to the mix. He doesn't, from what I can tell. But I think he's done a good job of showing Don Cheney's input into the letters. If you just look up Robert Peter Ackerman, you'll see a lot of these examples. Yes, he trashed Spinelli. Definitely called him hood. In a recording, he called him a hood. Of course, Spinelli had ties to the Vallejo. They call it mafia. It's mafia types, but he wasn't exactly a John Gotti. They weren't out killing everybody in sight like Goodfellas, the movie, but they were involved in racketeering and obviously a lot of armed robberies. Spinelli wrote a book about being sent to prison, which is really good, actually. I highly recommended. Doesn't mention Zodiac at all, though, but it talks about all his experiences in 2 different prisons. I think he was in San Quentin for a good while. He was in prison twice. One was in 1969. And something happened in Oregon, and then he got back in prison for something else, for I think those same darn robberies that he was trying to get out of. So he did 2 long stints in prison and saw a lot of violence and everything you think you would see at a hardcore prison in Northern California. He saw it. Wonder if Falk was ever showed pictures of the DC, as Falk claims ALA was not the guy, then ran into Presidio Heights. Well, you know who else said that Allen wasn't the guy was Brian Hartnell. Brian Hartnell, who observed Allen at work, even though Brian saw him with a hood on. If you read the Riverside Lawyer magazine, Brian Hartnell does not think Arthur Lee Allen was the Zodiac. That is, as per Riverside Lawyer magazine, the best witness we have in this case, which is fortunate and unfortunate. It's fortunate that it is Brian Hartnell, who's a super smart guy. He's still a practicing lawyer. He's getting up there in age now. I think Brian's 78. I think I'm right there with this age, 78. He's a multidisciplinary lawyer. He married an anesthesiologist. He's got 2 grown sons. He's a very intelligent guy. That's why we're fortunate. But the unfortunate part is when he encountered Zodiac and spoke with him, he had the damn black trash bag, for lack of a better word, over his head. And, of course, the Zodiac symbol that he said was done with care. He said it looked like it was sewn, hand sewn, and done with care. And I was told by an insider at SFPD that they knew Don Chaney was an expert sewer, and they had it written down in their files that they never let out as an expert level sewer with his hands. And that's true. Don Chaney could sew at an expert level better than most women, or better than, as well as a machine, by hand. It's just something he learned when he was young, and he had the skill. But a lot of people say, oh, half the dudes in the military could sew. That ain't true, because I asked guys that were in the military in the early 70s and late 60s if they could sew, and they said, hell no. Thanks. I appreciate that. And definitely leave a review on the book if you can. Always appreciate anytime someone picks up the book and leaves a review, which helps. But yeah, definitely, it's all in the book. I only updated it once, and the book was written really from a non-circumstantial angle, and I did add some circumstantial evidence later just because it was heavy. And like Chaney having a relative with last name Paradise, and going to school with Paul Avery, and being in the Air Force. Those are 3 things I did not know when I wrote that book, or co-wrote the book with my editor. I did not know. Had no idea. Didn't know. I mean, so I thought it was important to add those, but I wasn't trying to make a circumstantial case. I was mainly with the book going off of Chaney's own statements, which are mainly from, his name was Arthur Lee Allen, of course, and the interview he did with, you know who, at the Hood River Inn in 2001. So I'm basically going off of Chaney's own statements. I'm building the case around his statements and not circumstantial evidence, especially one being the ABC murders. I don't know why in the world Don Chaney would have ever mentioned Agatha Christie's ABC murders, because he even admits Allen never said it. He said he noticed Allen's modus operandi in that little book called The ABC Murders by Agatha Christie, which was written, I think, in 1936, 1937. And when you read that book, you see a lot of coincidence to the Zodiac murders. Yeah, I want to have on, I want to have Mark Hewitt on, even though Mark Hewitt has a different suspect. Mark Hewitt likes Ted Kaczynski as Zodiac, Unabomber, but Mark did 3 books. Well, he's done 4. I think he has a 4th one out. But he used his Genius Publishing, which my good friend Tony Wright used to publish his Yuba County 5 book. So we have a lot of friends in common. So I'm thinking about having Mark on just for that, because we have a lot of mutual friends. So I think that would be cool to just see Mark's angle on that. I definitely have friends that have other suspects. I mean, not just DB Cooper or Zodiac, just whatever, and totally respect these guys and respect their angles, because everybody comes into cases different ways. So I'm sure Mark can explain how he landed on Ted Kaczynski, but I think Mark's first 2 books are the best primers on the Zodiac case in general. And for profile books, I like Soren Korsgaard's book. I'd like to have Soren on. That's a great idea. So glad somebody brought that up. Of course, I don't make a living at any of this, and my day job's pretty hard. So that's why I have little lapses and and uploads, but I'm trying to get back into it now that things are calming down a little bit work wise. But I had like a really busy December and January that I really didn't predict, but I did, and it just kind of threw me off and other stuff. These folks still think that it was ALA. No, name one pedo that killed adults. That's true. Yeah, that's true. I think it is rare, Dennis, for known pedophiles to kill, because this brings up, of course, we have the police records from when Alan went to prison. He went to Tuscadero. Remember, that's like a hospital, mental hospital, prison, all rolled into one. And he did work there as well for a period before he goes there as I guess he would, for better lack of a better word, prisoner. But he goes for one of the molestations on I believe, a 15-year-old boy. And he, it's just, he's very, I don't know, I'm not using this right, and I don't want to get graphic at all, but they were these very heavy petting situations with the molestations. They weren't, I mean, I'm not trying to downplay it. Please don't get that impression, but they weren't full on rapes. I'm just trying to paint a picture here, because what Alan told the victims was, just don't tell your mom. Basically, that's all he said. He didn't threaten, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill your sister. I'm the Zodiac. I'm going to kill your dad. I'm going to kill your mom. I'm going to kill your dog and your cat. That didn't happen. And both these guys kind of backed up each other's stories that weren't even, I don't even think knew each other, but it was the same. Just don't tell your mom. That's all Alan said to these guys that he molested, was don't tell your mom. And of course, one of them did. And that's, the rest is history. Why would this big time organized serial killer molest somebody and just say, don't tell your mom? That's insane. And that's in the police reports. If he said more than that, it would be in the Santa Rosa police reports of these incidents that he got sent to prison for. He didn't. All he said was, don't tell your mother. Yeah, Hewitt's first book is fantastic. Yeah, I think Mark would add a lot of value in terms of conversation and thought-provoking ideas. Yeah, that's why I like having Horn on, even though some people gave me grief about it. And yes, Professor Horn is a friend of mine, always has been. I never shot down his theory because I thought there was a place for it. And with all the anomalies in Zodiac, there is a place for something like the hoax theory. There really is. I can't say for sure Hell's Angels didn't kill Faraday and Jensen. I lean against it a little bit, but I don't know. I really won't go in hard on Lake Herman Road. I mean, it could have been Cheney and Allen, but it could have been somebody else. I really don't know. I'm pretty confident Cheney at Berryessa, pretty confident Cheney at Presidio, but but the other two, no. Maybe Allen alone at Blue Rock. I know Vallejo PD fully believes that. Inward and outward, they believe that it was Allen at Blue Rock. I don't know why, but they do. Alan's cousin's house was close to, it was 2 blocks from, this is always good because I go back in memory, from Mason and Gary Street, which is where Zodiac or the killer of Paul Stein, whichever you like, hailed the cab that took him to the Presidio. Of course, they weren't in the Presidio when the cab was hailed. It was hailed at the intersection of Mason and Geary, which is 2 blocks away from where Cheney's first cousin was living at the time in the city of San Francisco. He lived 2 blocks away. So that's just, obviously that's circumstantial, but it's interesting circumstantial. Who's McConnell? I'm not even sure. Z couldn't control his sexual urges. I've seen that said before. But it still would be weird to take it out, but not be a rapist. So just sexual gratification just from the killing. Not saying that doesn't exist. It could have been just an anomaly in the case, but I've seen that before. I've seen people propose that. Was Z18? Well, not at the time of the murders. I mean, I don't think anybody believes that. I think most people put Zodiac at Lake Herman Road, somewhere in the area of 33 years old to probably early 40s. And I would say that's probably goes throughout the Stein murder. He did. It's true. His cousin was, oh God, it's been so long since I've done it. But one thing that ties into this is good friends of the Cheney family. When I say family, I mean Don's parents and sister. He had a sister and two parents, obviously, that were always together through their whole marriage until their deaths. The mother died first, which is interesting because someone pointed out to me once that Zodiac wrote a letter about being depressed or something. I can't remember the words that he used in one of the letters, but that was right around the time of Cheney's mother's death. That was in the early 70s. She died fairly young, from what I remember. But I can't remember what letter, but someone pointed it out. But anyway, the Cheneys were really close friends with the family with the last name Austin, like the city of Austin, and they lived in Vallejo at the time of the murders. Now, they lived in Bakersfield first. That's how the Cheneys met them. But they were very close family friends, and they stayed close even after the Austins moved to Vallejo. And I think Mr. Austin was working in the naval yard. Like, I don't know, 80% of Vallejo, the men in Vallejo were working at the damn naval yard, right? Or if they weren't, they were running dope for Spinelli. But seriously, the Austins had two sons, and I think they were both in the Air Force. One of them was living at home, and I can't remember the name of the street. It was a little more north of where Alan was living at 32 Fresno, and where kind of the center activity there. But one of the sons had moved out of the house and literally moved across the street from Terry's Waffle House in 70 or 69. One of the sons had moved out. He was probably 19 or 20, old enough to move out of the house, but still in Vallejo, and literally lived like, I don't know, as close as you could live to Terry's Waffle House and still be in a home, which I thought was kind of interesting. But that's just, extra stuff laying on the cutting room floor for me. Yes, well, no, I don't. There wasn't a sighting of two guys near Lake Herman Road, including the lady. I don't remember her name. Ross probably does. But there's the YouTube video that was made by Richard Grinnell where they found a shell casing that didn't match the others, which kind of implied there may have been two shooters at Lake Herman Road. I think it's called the 7-to-1 ratio or something. If you look that up on Richard Grinnell's YouTube channel, he doesn't put much up on YouTube, and it's an older video, but it's great. There was the one. I think they didn't. Well, maybe they didn't find one of the shell casings. It's been so long, but that kind of insinuates there could have been two shooters at Lake Herman Road. One that just maybe took one shot, and then somebody else kills David and Betty Lou. All I know, and it all comes from Brian, of course, because Cecilia died 2 days later, and all we know that she said is her description of Zodiac to Deputy Dave Collins after she was knifed at Lake Berryessa. But Brian said something like, "I think I can get loose and make a play on the gun. Do you think this?" Like kind of asking her if he should, because obviously, if that turns bad, it could turn bad for both of them. And maybe because at that point, they don't know they're going to get stabbed. They just think it's not good at this point, but it's not real bad until he, hog ties them and he has them tie each other up. And then Zodiac tightens up the bindings, but they didn't know it was going to go real bad until then. But at the time, Brian did ask Cecilia, "Hey, I think I can make a play on this guy on the gun, like get his bindings loose enough where his hands are and kind of grab it at the gun, which was the major threat. The knife was still in the sheath. So Brian could have made a play on the gun itself and, just maybe change things back to their advantage. But she apparently, according to Brian, said, "No, that's not a good idea. We think he's just going to leave." And they tell you that too. Like Brian says this in the documentary, that you're taught just to comply because your best odds of survival is complying with the attacker and hoping he just robs you and leaves you out there. Even if they were left out there all night, it's cold, they're still going to live, and somebody's eventually going to come along the lake and find them. But of course, as we know, Brian crawls his way across the land for however many yards he went, and then gets picked up by Dennis Land, of course, and then we get into that whole thing. But he is picked up by Park Ranger Dennis Land, who goes on to work at the park for another 25 years or so after that. And never could find a second picture of Dennis. I have that one where he was in the military police. That's the only picture of Dennis Land I've ever seen. I've seen one picture of his brother Ray from the high school yearbook, but that was it. She just said something along the lines of, "No, don't do it. Let's just see how this goes. Like maybe he'll just leave us, after he takes what he wants." Even though I think Brian already offered him his change. He only had pocket change and his car keys to his Carmen Gia, and that was it. So I think that's all he says, is that she basically just said, don't, like, don't make a play on the gun. Just talked him out of it. Yeah, it was Crow. Said he was chased by two guys, then thought it was one. Was he the one that was with the girlfriend? I can't remember, because there was the one story about the guy that was in like the girlfriend's newer sports car that saw somebody coming up and down Lake Herman Road, and that he was looked like he was very stocky, which plays into all things Zodiac, and this whole thing he kind of lined up with the whole description, including the voyeur from Berryessa. But what was the lady's name? The lady's name. The lady's name that owned the ranch or whatever. Wasn't she the first one that came by Lake Herman Road? I can't even remember. Someone else walked out of the passenger side police report to hint about it. The strange thing about Dennis Land was his date of death being on the anniversary of one of the Zodiac victims' death. I think I've heard that. I think it's Darlene Ferrens, but I'm not sure. But I think that's true. And then I think that this comes up, and I know Ross is going to read it or do something on it on Shooting Zodiac. I think that's what you mentioned, Ross. I think it comes up in that book where they went, because they talk about, obviously Shooting Zodiacs when they're making the film Zodiac with David Fincher. They did find Dennis Land, and I don't know if they never recorded him or took a picture or anything, but they said he was very evasive when they approached his house, or whatever conversation took place. Would be interesting if whoever could remember that, like whoever was with them, if they could remember how Dennis Land acted, because he was still alive at the time. Dennis Land was gay. I don't know if that plays into anything, but he was gay. Just like Richard Gaikowski. I don't know how that plays into anything. I'm just throwing that out there for, the sake of doing this. It's just a fact. But they said he was acted very weird, but everybody in this case is weird. Let's face it. So what does that mean anymore? How is it possible to ask your girlfriend if you should make a play for the gun without Z hearing that? I don't know. You'd probably have to go back and listen to it. It's in there. Because if you go back to the documentary, and it's on YouTube, of course, they'll start with, of course, Lake Herman Road, and then they'll do Blue Rock, and then they'll go to Lake Berryessa, and then you could, maybe try to hone in on it there and listen to what he says there. That's pretty much what he says. When they're both tied up and maybe back to back, he mentions to her, "Hey, I think I can make a play on the gun." But yeah, maybe that's a good point, that he could have heard that, and I don't know, maybe went crazy or something. But that's definitely what he says. He says, I'm paraphrasing, of course, but go back and listen to it and see what he says. Footprints and shots came from the passenger side. Yeah, you're talking about Lake Herman Road, right? Because we know Betty Lou was shot in the back, and then I think it's surmised that no, I think it's surmised that the Zodiac walked up to David's window. Of course, David was driving the station wagon, and that maybe Zodiac walks up to the window and he knocks on the window, and David rolls down the window or something like that. I think I even said that when I did the documentary, and I kept thinking, like, how do we know exactly how that went down? I just always believed it, maybe just from playing it through my mind. The Pancake House, right around the corner from ALA's home of Vallejo. I've been there. That owner came to the U.S. from Germany under the Operation Paperclip. Yeah, that's from Horan. Horan said that on this show. I don't know if that's true, but I'm going to look into that. Wish I had time. I'm going to try to do that. Yeah, I remember Professor Horan saying the same thing. So yes, you were talking about Lake Herman Road. I think he came up to David's side, and then, but I thought he shot David on David's side, and then Betty Lou gets out and runs, and he comes around and shoots her in the back. out of all the circumstantial evidence that we got with Cheney, him using the word bouncing twice is your favorite. Yes, he does. He uses bouncing twice in the letter with you know who. And then he also uses the phrase slip of the tongue, which of course comes out in the concerned citizen card, which was mailed in. And that was the solution to the 408 cipher, which came out right after that Don Hard and his wife, Valerie, she went by Valerie. I only know that because I work with Valerie, even though her name was Betty June, I think. But she went by the name Valerie. Like if you said Betty, she wouldn't like know who you were talking about. She went by the name Valerie. This Zodiac stuff you probably didn't know and don't care to know, but he sent that in, and it was basically the same solution, just off a little bit from the original solution from Don Harden, the school teacher. So remember, in Concerned Citizen, he said, here's the solution to the 408, and please forgive me for not giving my name, as it can be mentioned by the slip of a tongue. And of course, Cheney says the same phrase in the letter with TV. He says, you know, they were trying to get me to make, like when they were polygraphing Don Cheney, he says something like they were trying to get me to make a slip of the tongue. So there you go. He's using, you know, he uses bounce twice in the letter, and he also says slip of the tongue, which appears in Concerned Citizen, which I 100% believe that Zodiac. I think he wanted the 408 solved early, but I think that Hard solved it a little too fast. It's just my feeling, you know. So he felt a little embarrassed and wanted to get in another solution quickly after the Hardens had solved it. Because I think the Concerned Citizen was sent directly to John Lynch. Hopefully I'm remembering that right. But yeah, I like bouncing because he uses bouncing so weird when he's talking about how the kids were bouncing on the trampoline. You usually say jumping, even though, yes, when you're going up and down on a trampoline, you are bouncing because it's recoiling you. You are bouncing. But most people here, at least in America, say you're jumping on the trampoline. You wouldn't say, oh, I'm going to go over to my buddy's house and we're going to bounce on the trampoline. You'd say, we're going to go jump on my buddy's trampoline. You'd never say, we're going to go bounce on his trampoline. You'd say jump. So it's weird that he says it there. And then, of course, he says it when he claims that Allen was bounced out of the Navy. And that whole thing is kind of convoluted about Allen in the Navy. You know, there's some things you can read where Allen was literally given a discharge, like almost an honorable, maybe like a general discharge. And then, you know, because they just wanted rid of him. And I think that might be true. And probably because the people in the Navy knew that Arthur Lee Allen's father was a hero in the Navy. He was a Navy pilot. He was very well regarded. I think just the fact that he was the son of Ethan Warren Allen would have been enough just to say, hey, this guy isn't cut out for this, but we're going to let him out, you know, without this big shame or something, you know. So if Allen got let out of the Navy with anything like a general or even an honorable, it would have just been out of total respect for his father, in my opinion, because I've seen that come up before. So I need to dig into that a little more. Yeah, he called the kids darlings. Yes, he did. Called them little darlings. But in the letter, he says little kitties. Yeah, that's the same word, but it's a clue. Yes, he's trying to create a little bit of separation by calling them the little darlings instead of the little kitties, because he wrote it. So he needs that little separation there by calling them darlings instead of kitties. Yes, that is a clue. Zodiac used the word bouncing, talked about kids just like Don. Yes, and you know, look how Don talks about kids, and his name was ALA. He said kids a lot. Comes up. Why is Richard Hoffman a suspect? I guess because his grandson is on TikTok. That's why. Hoffman's a weird dude. That's why. Hoffman's a weird guy. Of course, he rode in the ambulance with Darlene all the way to the hospital. You know, people make this, you know, the biggest thing against him is how would he have been able to leave the hospital quick enough to make the phone call from Tuolumne Springs? He would have had to have been really running. Some people think that he may have called from the hospital and gave the phone number to the phone that was located at Tuolumne Springs. I've seen all kinds of, explanations for that. But Hoffman's a pretty weird dude. Let's face it. He kind of comes off weird in the documentaries, but who doesn't? Who doesn't come off weird? You know, even people think that Norm Boudreau comes off weird in his name and it's ALA. And I think that Norm Boudreau seems kind of normal. So maybe that's me. But you know, the whole thing with Hoffman is really Mike Migeau saying that he remembers that Darlene mentioned a boyfriend or something named Richard, and you know, it comes from that, from Mike Migeau. It comes from him working for Vallejo PD, and the fact that he may have dated Darlene. There's no proof of that. I've never seen any proof that he denied even knowing her. I mean, in fact, his denial was a little too strong, in my opinion, for Hoffman. Hoffman denied ever knowing Darlene Ferrin, and it looked like the whole city knew her. And I'm not trying to put her down, but Vallejo wasn't that big. You know, Vallejo is like a city stuck in time. But that's mainly why Hoffman's a suspect, because he acted weird. He rode with Darlene. He mentioned the part about her breathing, and he could see her bra strap as she was losing blood and the air coming out of her stomach or her chest, and noticing her bra strap, which was a little kind of weird sexual comment. You know, that with what Mike said, that's kind of the reason why Hoffman's is a suspect. It's been bandied around for years before his grandson, who didn't even know him, by the way. His grandson didn't even know him. I don't even think he ever met him. They did but that is his real grandson, from what I know. They did the TikTok video that got, you know, all those views on TikTok. Of course, it faded away like all things do. I mean, what keeps coming around in the Zodiac case over and over, you can't get rid of. You can't get rid of Arthur Lee Allen. You can't. It's like the gum on your shoe. He's the abusive spouse. He never goes away. And then and you can't have Allen without Cheney. That's why I'm a Cheney Allen guy. I always will be. And that's what this channel mainly talks about, is Allen and Cheney. So if people are into something else, sorry, I'm sure you can find what you like somewhere else, but that's where I am here, because that's what I know. And you can tell I know this case pretty well. And it helps me to talk to people here that know it really well, like everybody on this board, like Sefer and Ross and, man, all of you. I remember that one person that jumped on one night that was just on fire. I wish, I don't know if it was a female or a male, but man, they knew this case and had such great comments. I wish they would come back. I can't remember who that was. But there's so many great commentators on here. Is there any cross connection to Zodiac murders in Santa Rosa? Well, you know, the Zodiac in Santa Rosa all comes up in Zodiac Unmasked by Robert Graysmith, where Graysmith proposes that Allen may have been the Santa Rosa hitchhiker slayer because he lived in Santa Rosa a lot. When he lived at the Sunset Trailer Park, I think I got that right. Sunset Trailer Park, where his trailer was. Allen had another trailer somewhere. A lot of people don't know that. I don't remember where, but he had more than one. Of course, the big connection would be and the big question is, did Allen know Freaky Fred Manali? I mean, that's the $1 million question, right? Did Allen know Fred Manali? I mean, Manali is a weird guy. If there was ever a great suspect for Santa Rosa, it's Manali, particularly in the death of Kim Allen. No relation to Arthur Lee Allen at all. I don't get into there. I'm a genealogist. But if there's ever a good suspect for Kim Allen's murder, who was a victim of the Santa Rosa hitchhiker, it would be Fred Manali, because when Fred Manali got killed in that head-on accident, they found that really weird sadistic handprinting of Kim Allen that was done by Fred Manali. Manali was a weird guy. I mean, supposedly there's some DNA left over from the Santa Rosa murders, and I don't know where that is. Why can't they get that over to Othram, to David Middleman, the best DNA guy in the world, and get this thing solved? I mean, that could open up everything. But yeah, that's where, there's no hardcore tie of Zodiac in Santa Rosa. It's just comes from Graysmith throwing out there that Allen could have been the Santa Rosa. And the fact that Kim Allen, one of the victims I just mentioned, was carrying a soy barrel that had markings on it similar to the markings on the Exorcist letter. Those are the two tie-ins. The soy barrel, I don't know why Kim was carrying that. I don't know if she worked at a Chinese restaurant or whatever, but she was carrying like a barrel. Like it had, I guess soy sauce would go in it, and it had these weird markings on it. It could have been how it came, but they look very similar to the markings on the Zodiac killer's Exorcist letter, which is kind of strange. I love the bouncing thing. I agree with you, Sepher, on that. Plate C, I'm going to end it here. I have often thought that the Fred Manali was involved in the Zodiac along with ALA and DC. He could have been, because you have, I mean, if anybody's writing style that was similar to Zodiac, it was Fred Manali, because he was we have a lot of Manali's writings because he was a creative writing teacher at Santa Rosa Junior College. And he was one of these, he wrote, I shall a lot, and then he used the whatchamacallit or a word like that, where it was all written as one long word. Whatchamacallit is one word he did. Very similar to Zodiac. Not a math guy, so I wouldn't see him putting together the 340. But as far as some of the writing, I see Manali, Manali would make a better suspect if he wasn't so tall, for that reason alone. I think I never saw Manali's official height, but just looking at pictures of him, he's very thin. He looks like he's 6'3" to me. Very nice looking. I know the girl at Berryessa for the voyeur said he was rather nice looking. Maybe that was Manali. Maybe Manali was a voyeur. I think that's been proposed before. Not, I wouldn't be the first, but maybe that's been proposed before, that Manali was the voyeur from Lake Berryessa. But I think Manali's a little too tall for Zodiac. And there's a couple other things that might have gone against him, but Manali for Santa Rosa for sure. Manali for Kim Allen all day long. But if I had time for anything, would be to dig deeper into Fred Manali and Santa Rosa, and learning what DNA is left in this case. I believe they do have DNA for that case out of one of the murders. I don't think it's Kim's. I think it's another one of the victims. And they, like Zodiac, you can't even 100% tie in all the victims from Santa Rosa. You can't for sure say that Kim Allen was absolutely murdered by the same murder of another Santa Rosa victim. But in the Santa Rosa slings, they were definitely looked sexually motivated. They were raped and then killed, unlike Zodiac, who didn't rape anybody, which is one reason I thought the Golden State was such a terrible suspect for Zodiac. But that's it for now. Thanks for watching. Thanks again, Patty, for the great artwork. I'm going to leave it up there. We've got a Holly on there. Of course, Corky, and we'll give out a big foot out for Monday of the start of the week for poor saps like me that have to go to work tomorrow. But again, thanks for watching.